Legends of Lore. All right, well, welcome everyone to the Legends of Lore broadcast. Today we're going to be talking about Picard, Star Trek Picard, Episode 4, Season 3, No-Win Scenario.
No-win scenario.
And it definitely seemed like a no-win scenario for Mr. Jean-Luc and company.
Yeah, but we haven't introduced ourselves. I'm Shirley Singleton.
I'm Joe Manuola.
That's right. And we are...
Legends
of
Lore.
All right. So we're down for the no-win situation here.
Always.
Yeah.
So we start off with a flashback.
Right.
Happier times.
Yep. Tim Ford, 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Tellarite serving him food.
Right.
And some kind of fish dish.
Yeah, and there's a picture of Picard and Guinan above him, but it's from the Nexus, so I don't know how they got that picture, but, you know.
Very good question. Very good. Maybe tricorders could take pictures.
Maybe, yes.
It stands to reason.
Yes.
And they mentioned Picard fighting the Herosian, and, well, actually, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. A group of young people approach Picard before he can indulge in his delicious meal.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of rude for, like, all of them to come up and, like, you know, oh, Admiral, blah, 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 but I guess he was down for the hero worship.
They were pestering, but he didn't seem to mind much.
Right.
He wasn't mad.
No.
And so, you know, they go into, you know, having him regale them with the tales of his adventures, and they poke and probe about, like, different things he's done. And one thing that really piqued my interest was they mentioned him fighting the Herosian, which, if, you know, obviously every real Star Trek Voyager fan would know of them from the Delta Quadrant.
Right.
You know, not traditionally, Picard didn't have a lot of interactions with the Herosian.
No, not at all.
But it does, they also bring up, would Admiral Janeway do this and do that? So, I think that's the spinoff I want to see. Admiral Janeway and Admiral Picard palling around the galaxy.
I don't know. That'd be like a bunch of... that'd be interesting. You know, two captains. I mean, we got that in, the Star Trek 4 or whatever with, like, Picard and Kirk.
Right, I think that was Star Trek Generations.
Which
I think was 7, right?
Yeah.
But who's counting? Okay, so Picard, you know, ultimately gives a very rousing, emotional, and inspirational speech to these young people. What you think?
I thought that, I mean, it was obviously what they were looking for.
Right.
You know.
Pandering to the crowd.
Right, totally. You know, and I thought it was a good scene. I mean, I thought it went a little long, but, I mean, it pays out in the end.
It definitely does. So we cut back to the Titan, you know, modern day, and it's not in very good shape whatsoever. We left the crew of the Titan at one of their darkest times at the end of the last episode. Yeah,
they're falling. They're falling into the gravitational anomaly, the gravitation well. And, you know, they're trying to figure out, like, what can we do? Can we transfer power to thrusters? Can we transfer power to blah, blah, blah? And nothing's like, no.
Yeah, they're even talking about diverting power from life support, which is a scary thought for the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, and then, you know, they keep saying that these bioelectrical waves keep coming.
Yeah, definitely some foreshadowing for things to come. Riker gets really emo and gets really dark talking about his dead son, and he ponders the afterlife, which I thought was always an interesting concept in this super advanced universe that this takes place in, you know, where humanity is all but conquered death. They haven't truly conquered death. I mean, they can fix most bodily injury, they can extend life a long, long time at this point, but everyone's still mortal, and the afterlife is still unknown. And that's something that previous episodes of Star Trek have definitely played on, or previous, you know, series and individual episodes in those series. Like, I think about the one episode where Picard seems to die, and then there's Q who comes out of the white light, and, you know, I think it makes him, like, go back in time and live his own life from the past, something like that. But not a serious, you know, treatise on, like, the afterlife. There's been characters talking about it, but it's still just as much a mystery to them in the 24th century as it is to us, I guess.
Yeah, Yeah, and there's no comfort to be had for anybody.
Right, especially not facing death, and that seems to be what the crew of the Titan is going to be doing.
Right,
Thanks, Picard.
so
Thanks,
yeah,
Picard.
right, yeah. So Will goes to talk to Picard about and make up because it's basically we're dead in the water. We're
Right. Nobody's fighting now.
Right, and you need to go make peace with your own son, because while you still have time, type deal.
Oh yeah, very heavy stuff, and I believe that is all just the opening.
Right.
The cold opening.
That was a cold open.
Hell of an open.
Yeah, that it was.
So we jump into the episode full force. We see 7 of 9 making herself useful. Discussing what's going on with Riker and maybe serving in an unofficial capacity.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool that, he didn't reinstate her as, first officer so she could be off wandering the ship trying to find the changeling.
Yeah, very good call. And so she goes to form an uneasy and unlikely alliance with Captain Shaw, who's still recovering from his broke leg.
Yeah, yeah. Then we got Picard going to sickbay to talk to Jack, and he sees Beverly and he's like, oh, do you mind if I have a minute? And she seems extremely ecstatic, that they're, having some time together.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, Riker, he wants to leave messages for Troy because he thinks this is the end, and he's hoping that, if they can manage to preserve the ship, someday he could get a message to Troy, but he's just having trouble getting it out. Pretty depressing stuff.
Yeah. I guess, like he said last time, that, maybe all that stuff on the Pente, I don't know, was he faking it? Good
question.
I don't know.
Well, we also learned that in these trying times that the Titan is in, they still can manage to run a holodeck due to a small power cell that they save in case of emergency, so the crew can have some kind of solace in the face of certain destruction, I guess.
Right. And I wonder, I guess maybe this holodeck technology, maybe it's more... It's drawing from the stuff from the Doctor. Because it says that it's a small independent power cell.
Right. Which, it raises, it's good that they factored this in. Because, in fiction, they could have just had total inconsistencies. Just previously they were talking about having to, struggling to transfer power from other systems just to keep life support going. So it definitely would have been a giant oversight had they just used the holodeck and not mentioned that plot point. So, hats off to, the people making this, keeping Star Trek running on that own internal logic is what makes Star Trek Star Trek. But still, maybe a little bit of a stretch of disbelief because why not draw power from that power cell to...
apparently it's just such a small independent, and it's independent, so maybe it's not connected to the
I guess that's the key, but you gotta think, how small could it be? There would have to be a tremendous amount of power to run something like a holodeck.
Well, you would think, but if the Doctor had his mobile emitter, maybe they had, used that technology,
much more efficient.
Expanded on it. Yeah, on the efficiencies.
Good point.
And then, Jack's there with Picard and the Holo Tim Forward, and Jack's like, Picard's like, oh, I have some of my own venue. Yeah, my own.
Yeah. He turns up his nose at it.
Yeah, he's like, no, I'm not a wine guy.
Yeah, that's pretty cringy.
Yeah, so they end up drinking Jameson, which we, see is still around.
Yeah, product placement.
Yeah.
And they have that heart to heart. Oh man.
Yeah.
But I guess it's a little bit more about Picard than it is about Jack.
Well, Jack got to ask, what about the hair?
That is the important part.
Yeah, that was the important part.
Okay, so in the next scene, we jump back to Shaw and 7, and I think Star Trek history may be being made in this next scene because we're getting the first reference to marijuana in Star Trek. I think.
Yeah.
And please correct us in the comments if we find something else that predates this in any of the other series that I haven't watched, but this is, to my knowledge, the first marijuana reference. And I've always wondered about that because there's still the concept of alcohol in the 24th century, and there's synthahol. So, it stands out that no one's ever brought up marijuana. And is there a scent of weed?
I don't know. I hope it's better than the scent of weed now.
Oh, please. So ultimately, they're not really talking about that kind of pot. They're talking about the kind of pot that changeling turns into goo and rests in.
So, with that, I thought it was a little odd that this pot looked exactly like Odo's pot. I mean, like, I don't think, like, the changelings were handing out pots when they were, like, leaving the Delta Quadrant, you
Right,
know?
right.
I think that Odo got his pot from that doctor that he was, like, trying to impersonate, you
Yeah.
know? So, I don't know. I thought that was a little weird that the pot looks exactly like Odo's pot.
Good call out. Good call out. You know, maybe they were maybe like Odo made that fashionable. Maybe he
Right,
went
yeah.
back to the
Everybody wants a pot like Odo.
Right. Maybe he went back to the Great Link and was like, "Hey, when you guys leave the Great Link, just bring this pot with you.
Right.
You can sleep in it."
Yeah.
Wh-
And then I thought that it was cool that both Seven and Shaw are acting in unofficial capacities.
Definitely.
Yeah. So and they're able to talk to each other frankly, not as a, captain, the first officer, because both of them are relieved of duty.
Right. Right. Shaw and the actor who plays Shaw really get to shine in this episode. I mean, he becomes more and more likable as each episode goes on.
Most definitely.
Well, okay, so we go to the Shrike, where things are not going particularly well over there either. But and I do want to bring up that when they cut to the exterior shot of the Strike, we hear the
Right.
the trailer
yeah,
noise again.
Yeah, the sound effect. Yeah.
Yep. And we see a very unique form of communication that Shirley's a little unsettled by.
I mean, so Vedic cuts off her hand to talk to, her handler, which we suppose is like some changeling or whatever. I mean, that's a kind of weird. I mean, I don't know. She didn't look like she was feeling well the entire episode, which, I mean, it's understandable if you got to cut off your own hand,
Just
to
make a long
report
distance
back,
call, yeah.
And then, like, I mean, like, how did that work out? Like, is she a changeling? If she's not a changeling, she's a human or some humanoid alien, and she's been forced to take on this changeling hand?
Yeah, I would say that she probably is a changeling. I think the question is are the crew changelings?
I don't know.
Well, okay, so anyway, they have to distance. She gets orders that she has to go inside the nebula, but she's like, no, we can't go inside the nebula because the portal tech will be destroyed. And they're like, so they end up having to disengage the portal tech, which I wonder if that's going to come up again, or if it was just some kind of plot reasoning where it's like, oh, well, they got to disengage the portal tech, or they could be using it, and that's like, was it like the lazy storytelling, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was probably an inventive way to get rid of that, plot device.
Right, okay, fair enough. Then I believe we go back to the flashback where, briefly, right?
Yeah, but, like, in the meantime, prior to the Vedic scene, 709 went to go search for the pot.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And she ended up finding it. I mean,
And their plan is to take a little bit of the matter that's left over, the residue.
The goo.
And scan it and be able to track down the
residue. I like that.
So I believe we go back to Jack and Picard having that moment. And, Jack's pretty straightforward. He's just a lone wolf.
Yeah.
Like, don't need nobody.
That's right.
He's out there on his own. Lonely road is all he's ever known.
Right, that's it.
But Picard makes a good point. He says everyone needs a connection.
Yeah. I mean, then we had the flashback back with the cadets. I guess Picard was talking more stuff or whatever, and then they came back to the 10-4. Yeah, and
right.
then that's when your boy Shaw walks in.
Yes. Yes, still in the scene again.
Right. It seems like every scene he's in, he's just chewing it up.
Yeah, he definitely does. Like, 1 second Picard's talking about getting space tang and stealing shuttles with Jack's namesake, Jack Crusher.
Yep.
Next thing you know, Shaw comes in all hopped out on space painkillers and just lets him have it.
Yeah.
He goes in.
Yeah. Even throws a little shade at Beverly with the saying that she throws out, she puts out good drugs.
Right, yeah. She's liberal with them painkillers, all right.
Right, yeah. And then he goes in on Picard and brings up the whole Acutus thing. It's very reminiscent.
Wolf 359.
Yep, it's very reminiscent of Picard and Sisko's interaction at the beginning of Deep Space Nine.
I thought so too. Yeah, definitely took me back to that because that was that first scene of Deep Space Nine with Wolf 359 just is burned into my skull. It's one of the most dramatic parts of Star Trek history. That was one of the most bloodiest battles in Star Trek history. It's one
Yeah.
Borg cube destroying 40 starships,
Yeah.
11,000 dead. Like that is brutal. That is graphic and it is dramatic. And Shaw really lets him have it by going into the details of what happened that day. Seeing the world get set on fire, having a superior pick out just a few of his friends and himself to go on to the last ship, out.
Yeah, and then you see that Shaw has experienced a lot of trauma, and he's got survivor's guilt, and you it makes you more sympathetic to him. I mean, he's
Definitely.
still an asshole, but he's a more sympathetic asshole.
Yeah, and it kind of puts their first interaction, that first dinner they had, into perspective. Like,
Right.
it wasn't just, oh, this is this Admiral Conan throwing his weight around. It was like,
It's Locutus is here.
yeah, yeah, really, really, it's going to make that rewatch much more interesting.
Yeah, and I got Seven as my first officer, so it's like, well, dang, it's like the Borg are back.
Wow, yeah, definitely, definitely, he must feel some type of way.
Yeah,
And
I
he,
think I'd be feeling some type of way.
and he definitely doesn't hold back. He lets Picard have it. And Picard, instead of fighting, being contrary, just accepts what's going on and he leaves. And Jack chases after him.
Yeah, Jack chases after him, and then they run into Beverly.
Oh boy, and does she have some news for us?
That's right. She's been timing these bioelectrical shocks, and she thinks they're contractions.
Space contractions.
Yep.
And somehow they use this to reason their way to harnessing the power of the waves to ride them like a wave on the ocean straight at that nebula.
Yeah, but you're getting ahead of yourself
Okay.
because we're missing 7 to 9 coming back with her goo pot, and she gets shot. The changeling just ambushes her in the hallway.
That pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, wasn't it?
Yes, but I mean, and it kind of wraps up the whole changeling as a stowaway storyline.
Right, yeah. I mean, it was kind of creepy seeing the the transporter tech that the changeling had been impersonating, finding his body earlier, and then it's just I don't know, it seeing, you just never know with those changelings.
Yeah, those changelings, they're a very crafty lot, and you can never underestimate them. And I remember watching Deep Space Nine. That was part of the drama of it, was the uncertainty and the never being able to trust people, and you never knew who was a changeling.
Yeah, and then so also, like Seven, when she was talking to Shaw, she was saying that, this guy's been dead for a while, so this means that, this changeling's been on board before they picked up Riker and Picard, so, what, there's something else going on.
Yeah, something way bigger, and I think that just the fact that changelings are involved definitely foreshadows the involvement of maybe even elements of the Dominion. We can only hope to see the Jem'Hadar and the Vorta and the Founders and all the rest. They might keep it a little bit more self-contained, but there's definitely. I mean, we're only on episode 4, and it feels like this could have been the final episode of the season.
It could have been. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on here, and they're definitely keeping it coming and keeping the action packed, which I like.
Yes, I'm a huge fan of the season so far.
So then we got Crusher, we got Picard, we got Jack, all trying to convince Riker,
Mm-hmm.
of this wave riding, stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
And he takes some convincing.
and he does. But he finally gets on board, and then he's like, well, "Look, in order to do this, we gotta drop the covering from the nacelles so that they can, because that's the whole reason why the nacelles are covered is to stop them from picking up energy. So we got to get rid of that covering so it'll pick up the energy, pick up the charge, and we can get out of here." So it was good to see everybody contributing to the solution.
Right, definitely in line with the whole vibe of Star Trek being a team effort and the collective being greater than the individual.
Yeah.
And it was great. And, Riker gives a great speech, but before he does that we come to another factor, touching back on these space contractions. There is mention of space babies.
Right.
of the
Yeah.
nebula being a space womb.
Yes.
So much more foreshadowing going on here. And like just as you think that things couldn't get a little even weirder, Picard goes hat in hand to Shaw, telling him he needs one old grease monkey, a dipshit from Chicago, to step up and help take over off those nacelle covers. And I thought it was a good way to kind of show a little bit of a full circle with their relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Shaw, to his credit, he has been put through the ringer. He's been confronted with, like, the causes of his trauma, but he's still working through it, and he's still, supportive and, making an effort.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so we get to the point where it's time. It's put up or shut up time, and they gotta like take off those nacelle covers.
Yep.
And absorb the next wave because this is their last chance. Literally.
Right. Yeah. It was kind of. I thought it was kind of like odd that. I mean, granted, the contractions had been going on for a while, but it was kind of neatly tied up that she knew that the birth was going to happen, that this was their last chance,
right. It was a little too perfect, but I mean that's definitely in keeping with Star Trek of like very neat and tidy solutions to problems that typically are pretty messy.
Yeah, and then there was the whole thing about, like, well, how do we get out of this asteroid field?
Right, so they got to fly blind.
Right, just like Jack Crusher and Picard did all those years ago.
And who better do that than Picard himself? So he's asked to despite killing us all, he's asked to step up to the con and make it happen.
Yeah, that was, everybody's been wanting to see Picard take command of a capital ship since the beginning of the show. And we finally get that.
Yep, not just commanding it, but flying it in damn self.
That's right.
And I really, really liked the dynamic shots, the exterior shots of the Titan flying through the nebula. Like, great, just swooping underneath shots with a very dynamic virtual camera. They directed the CG in this very well.
You know what it kind of reminded me of is that old, I don't know if you ever played it or not, but it was the video game of the Star Wars video game TIE Fighter, where you going up and down and like over stuff.
Yes.
That's what it kind of reminded me of.
Good call. Well, okay, so yeah, he flies blind. There's great suspense as Jack's calling out the location, 373 bearing 421.
Right.
Activate docking thruster 7.
But we still don't have those pesky nacelles off.
Nope. And they there's more tension and suspense as they fumble with that and have to defend themselves from changelings subterfuge.
Yeah, because in walks Sidney LaForge. Oh, hi, yeah, I was, Riker told me to come down here and help. My dad, right? It's my dad. He, it's because of my dad I'm down here, right? You know. And so I thought it was, so when Shaw says, okay, pass me the torch, and she's like, okay, so which one's the torch? Because she was like, all right. And, then Seven comes up behind her with the phaser, and then she was like, oh, Commander. Commander what?
Commander Hansen?
Wrong answer.
Yep. Definitely a great, full circle on their relationship too, in terms of like their cute little pet name definitely paid off.
Yeah. I mean, if she wants to be called 7 to 9, Commander 7, that's cool. And I bet that Shaw calls her Commander 7 as opposed to Commander Hansen moving forward, because because they both have been acting in an unofficial capacity and they have been able to talk frankly, and she's like, she calls me Commander 7, as a sign of respect,
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely see that. And they finally get their mission accomplished and they get those nacelles open.
That's right, just in the nick of time.
And they're still flying blind. And I gotta say, I really love the way that the consoles on the bridge look. Like seeing the thing that Jack's reading off of to call out the asteroids. It just looks cool.
Right, yeah.
Very much in line with 24th century tech you'd expect from Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
So it finally comes down to the last second, and they're just barely not enough power. So what do? We got to do. I think for the first time that I can recall, at least, transferring all power from life support.
Yeah.
Which is a scary thought in the Star Trek universe. That's the thing keeping you from the cold, bleak vacuum of space.
Yeah, but that's like, it's like do or die.
Only chance. So they transfer all the power from life support, and everyone basically holds their breath as the Titan rides that wave straight out of the asteroid, except the Shrike is there to meet him.
Da-da!
But what does Riker do? He tractors
asteroid
and slingshots it right at the Shrike. And,
that's right.
And fucks him up proper.
Throws that asteroid.
So they get out of the nebula, and not only and as if escaping certain death was not enough of a reward, they are also rewarded with getting to witness the birth of space babies.
That's right.
Yep.
And everybody's on the bridge, the whole ensemble. We got 7 to 9, you got Shaw, you got, everybody else who was already on the bridge. Just making it complete, so they can boldly seek out new life. They're seeking out new life. They're enjoying the new life they sought out.
Yep.
And then they boldly got the hell out of there.
Yes, absolutely. I wonder, there was a mention of, like we've, witnessed space life before, like at Farpoint. Was this supposed to be the same species as the one in Farpoint, I wonder?
I don't know. They look similar they could have been an updated version of that species.
Right. I like to believe that it was, and that you could actually live inside those things when they're full grown and they grant your wishes.
Maybe.
I need one of them. Okay, anyway, so we go to the flashback, back to the flashback with Picard and 10 Forward.
Yep.
And giving his little speech, saying that, Starfleet was the only family I've ever needed.
Right, when he gets asked by some customer sitting at the bar.
Yes.
Some kid sitting at the bar.
Mm-hmm. Because he's talking about, how great of a family Starfleet was. His crew was like his family, and then precocious young man asked him if he ever had a real family.
Yeah, and he's like, no, I don't need a real family.
Starfleet is the only family I'll ever need.
That's right.
And you can see that stranger sitting at the bar is actually Jack,
right.
And you can see he's kind of affected by that.
Yeah, it was probably like about 18 or something, because before they established that he was like 23, 24. So that was 5 years ago, so he's like 18, 19.
But that actor has to be like at least 30, right?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. As he said, like 23 or 24, you can see like in his eyes, he's like, yeah, right.
Right. But, I think that they had to make him 30 to make it like, to cast somebody who's like 30 is to make it believable when you look at him. To be like Picard's son.
Oh, yeah, and that's a long practice in Hollywood. They always do that. But it's just funny. I didn't even think about it, but then like I could see the look on his face as like he's saying, I'm 23 or 24. And...
But the odd thing about that as well is that like after we've established that he is Picard's son, and all of the scenes that you see him with like Beverly and stuff like that, he looks like a lot more helpless, in all the scenes. He looks very vulnerable.
Absolutely, and I think that this episode made him more vulnerable, made him less of a tough guy.
Right.
But I mean, everyone was facing certain death. It's hard to be tough when you know you're going to die.
Right.
And we end with a tender moment with Riker and Troy, and we kind of got a lot of insight on their relationship this episode. Going back a little deeper towards like the beginning of the episode, where Riker really went into depth about how the death of his son made him cold and unfeeling, and that Troy being an empath was just not tenable for Troy. So he's out here among the stars trying to get his mojo back, and only to find himself staring in the face of death again. But I think this witnessing the space birth kind of lit a fire up under Riker, and maybe gave him some new purpose and drive.
Yeah, which is really cool. And at the end, Deanna's like, "Are you and Picard in trouble?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know."
Which is a great question because with all the crazy shit that's happened, you forget that Picard and Riker basically committed crimes.
Right. Yeah.
And they actually did commit crimes and put everyone's lives in danger.
Right.
So, but then again, if you think about the fact there's a changeling on board before they even showed up, then maybe they'll be somehow exonerated or otherwise.
We shall see.
Only time will tell.
That's right.
So we end with a very cryptic scene.
Well, we forgot Picard's log, the Admiral's log.
Oh yes. How can I forget that?
Yes, and what do they want with my son? And
right.
But yeah, and then that last scene with Jack.
Yeah, something's up with Jack. Something's up with Jack.
I mean, was something already wrong with Jack, or is this something new? That's what I want to know.
My guess is that there's something up with him, and beyond that, maybe some connection to either the Founders, the Dominions, something to do with maybe the Gamma Quadrant, perhaps even something we cannot foresee. But if I had to bet, I would say he has some kind of connection to the Gamma Quadrant or the Founders or the, something to do with the Dominion. And maybe he has some kind of secret code written in his DNA. Who knows?
Yeah, so it was like, find me. We'll be together soon. Find me.
Yes.
That's... And then it was like the connect the branches before when he saw like the red vine stuff around 7 in the past.
Very interesting. I hope that it's good, whatever it is. I hope it's juicy.
Yep.
Can't wait to dig my teeth into episode 5.
Yes.
I hear LaForge may be the next cameo we see.
Yeah, and he didn't look too happy.
Right, so we'll have to see what happens. Any, grand thoughts about this episode?
Well, about the current episode?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was good. I thought that the part with the cadets kind of went on for a bit, but I mean, it paid off in the end when, they parted and there was Jack in the background, please, sir.
Right, yeah. It did. It paid off. It definitely paid off.
Right.
And I see now why they went that way. But I'm a little bit cringe at that kind of stuff as well. But the Jack part was a good payoff that I didn't see coming.
Right.
I thought they were just filleting Picard just to do it. But definitely makes sense now in the context of the story.
It does. I think that next episode with Geordi, I mean, because I keep hearing people say, I don't know why he's upset. But just think logically about it. Like, Picard and Riker took the ship that his daughter's on some joyride,
It almost cost her life.
Exactly. I think as a father, I'd be upset too.
Right, yeah, he has every right to be, and I hope that we see that, because that would be the reasonable thing.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait, guys. We'll definitely be going to be covering the next episode of Picard, episode 5. Cannot wait.
Yep.
It's just been a great season so far, and thank you everyone who's listened to our broadcast tonight. We are the Legends of Lore.
Legends of Lore.
And we'll see you next time.
That's right. Thank you.
Bye. Be safe.
Peace.